money starts with emotion. It does not start with logic. It does not start with reason. It does not start with, how what's the math behind it. Never does it start with that. It always starts with emotion. Practically 8 out of 10 couples, are either living paycheck to paycheck or don't have enough in their savings to keep them afloat if something were to go wrong. We've been taught that financial management is about math, about how much you can make and how little you can spend. Well, that helps, right? That's the purpose of a spending plan, because math does make a difference in the final equation. But financial management is not about math. It's about emotion and behavior to make the math work. Money is a tool, and money will only do what you tell it to do or what you let it do.
If you're new or watching this as a replay, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. Please subscribe to Defenders Live on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, and join our group on Facebook as well. And if you don't want to miss another episode, you can sign up for email notifications at defenders-live.com. So before I introduce Austin, I just want to address maybe a small elephant in the room, because this show is called Defenders Live. So you might be wondering, why would we be talking about finances on Defenders Live? After all, isn't it a show about self-defense? Well, yes, it is. And self-defense, to me, can encompass a wide variety of topics. On this show, we do have guests that teach us about tools and skills that we can use to protect ourselves physically. But I believe it's also important to learn how to protect our families and ourselves in other ways too. Now more than ever, I hear people's concerns about the economy, wondering what is going on, and having a little bit of fear about that, and wanting to know how they can prepare themselves. And I think becoming financially secure, no matter the economy, is always a good idea. So I decided we might be able to learn a thing or two from my good friend, Austin Black. So Austin is a master financial coach, and he went from having his expenses exceeding his income and feeling guilty about even buying groceries to becoming debt-free with an emergency fund in place within just 18 months. Over the last 10 years, he has learned how money shapes your mindset and the behaviors that contribute to your success and failure. He and his wife have successfully managed cash purchases for vehicles and other assets while handling emergency house repairs, contributing to retirement and kids' college funds, and they turned their 15-year mortgage into a 5-year payoff. Austin has coached couples of all ages and income levels to achieving greater success with their money and marriage by focusing on behavior management and working as a team to accomplish their financial goals. His favorite part of coaching, he says, is helping couples overcome their fear and frustration of financial management so they can take complete control of their money and achieve their dreams. And that sounds like something I'm interested in learning about. I hope you are too. Let's welcome Austin Black onto the show. Hey, Austin.
Hey, Laura, thanks so much for that great introduction. I'm excited to be here today.
Yeah, I think I have a lot to learn in this department. And so
we all do. You're not alone.
I know I'm not alone. So that's why I wanted to have you on. And you and I are also good friends as well. And so I think this is going to be especially fun for that reason. So you have a remarkable story. When I was reading your bio, and then it said within 18 months, you became basically financial independent, and then taking a 15-year mortgage into a 5-year payoff. Like, I'm just blown away by that. Do you ever look back on that and just think, oh my gosh, how did we do that? That's remarkable.
I do often look back, and not that I'm surprised because it was all planned, but I am acknowledging of the fact that it's an uncommon story. It's not something that many couples anywhere would be able to say, just because of the way that we manage money and think about money in society. And my wife and I, well, before I got married, obviously, was whenever I had the 18-month long period. And just I took control because I had to. And then whenever my wife and I got married, and we had a plan from the very beginning, this is what we were going to do with this mortgage and with our house, because we didn't want to have a long mortgage. We didn't want to be in debt. So to me, it's not a surprise because that was the plan all along. But I do acknowledge the fact that it wasn't easy. It was a very disciplined, very focused plan that most people probably would not think they had the ability to do, because they wouldn't know how to start trying it. So yeah, definitely acknowledging the fact that that's not normal, but
it's uncommon.
But normal is broke. So here we are.
Yes. Thank you for saying that. Normal is broke. And why, I'm wondering, are we just content with the fact that most Americans are honestly paycheck to paycheck? What percentage of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck? I'm sure you have an understanding of that percentage.
We've been hanging right around that 79, 80, 82% for a number of years now. It might be, a few percent higher or less than that each year.
Hmm.
But for as long as I've been a coach, which I started back in 2020, it's hung around that 75 to 80% mark. So
Yeah.
practically 8 out of 10 couples,
Hmm.
are either living paycheck to paycheck or don't have enough in their savings to keep them afloat if something were to go wrong.
And I do think as well, and tell me if I'm wrong, it feels as though that we live in a very fast-paced culture, right? We're like the hamsters on the wheels,
Yes.
churning for the next dollar. And I think the excuse for some people, first of all, I don't know that we have the tools, many of us, to be equipped to be able to do what you did. We just don't have the knowledge. But I think even if most of us had the tools and the skills, many of us wouldn't implement anyway because we've got these hangups, these
Mhm.
mental and emotional hangups about money and make excuses. Like one big excuse I know is that I just don't have the time.
Yep.
I'm too busy making money to worry about the money.
Yep.
The very thing that's causing me all of this friction and frustration and stress in my life is the thing I don't have time to look at. What is going on there when people say that? What is that really about?
Yeah. So there's three things that are the reason why most couples, even if they aren't living paycheck to paycheck, even if they are that 2 out of 10, they still don't feel like they're in control and achieving the traction that they want. There's just very, very, very few people could handle any situation that came to them and could be in control of their money and their life no matter what happened. There's three reasons for that. Number one is they don't know how to manage money. They weren't taught how to manage money. They don't know people who can do it well. They just don't have the knowledge and the information to do it right. Number two is because they haven't been exposed to that, they don't believe it's possible. They haven't seen
Mm,
anyone who has won. All they've seen is their broke friends and family who talk about how you can't get ahead. Well, whenever you're surrounded by that influence, Laura, you're never even going to imagine it's possible.
right.
So if the vast majority of couples are under the expectation, understanding that that's just the way that it is, they're not going to try anything different. So that's the
Mm,
second reason. The third reason, though, and this is where the rubber really meets the road, is once you realize that you can and it's possible, it's up to you to do it. So you can have all the knowledge in the world, all the information, all the belief. Then it comes down to your behavior, your management, your mindset.
mm,
And that is where even if people have the budget in place, even if they, know how to pay off their debt, even if they know all the stuff to do and believe it's possible, if they don't take the action and implement that, that's where they fall short. So that's where it goes into what you're talking about. Okay, we're busy. We don't have the time. We don't have the energy. We don't have the brain power. We don't have all these things. Well, you're making the choice that you don't have the time, the energy, and the brain power. And I know my wife and I are just as busy as everyone else. We got 3 little kids. We both work. We both have all the stuff that we do. Time is money. Time is precious, and there's never seems to be enough of it.
mhm.
So it's the choices that you make with your time and with your decision and with your management. And the middle of summer, everyone's busy with vacations and with stuff that's going on. And money is the last thing that probably a lot of people are thinking about, but it's going to be the first thing that they're worried about
Mhm,
this fall and this winter when Christmas rolls around. They're trying to figure out how are we going to cover the holiday that happens every
mhm,
365 days a year.
mhm.
I could go on and on about all of those different nuances, but that's
Yeah,
what it comes down to
yeah.
is your knowledge has to correlate to your behavior, which is based upon your mindset and belief in your ability.
And it's not fun. It's uncomfortable, Austin, and people
Yes.
don't like to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
We
Yes.
know this. We know this. And so that's part of this process is really taking an honest look at yourself and your finances. And I love that you said something about being able to handle any situation
Mhm.
because we talk about that in self-defense all the time. We talk about being prepared, having training, working on our mindset and our skills. And those two things combined will help us to be as prepared as we can be for any situation. And
Mhm.
I see the parallels in this, and it's fascinating to me. It all comes down to where are you choosing to be disciplined in your life? Where are you choosing to learn and spend your time? And how important is that to you? But I find that so many people are really good at not wanting to face the things that scare them. It just is honestly a little bit sad too. And I'm
Mm.
not saying I'm not in that boat. I do have a specific question though. The question is, and this kind of goes along with this. I don't know if this is an excuse or just a mindset. So I want your take on like how this can be balanced.
Yeah.
I know some people that look at money as a negative thing in that it's negative whenever they aren't generous with it. Like
Mhm.
they see that their outlook is selfish if they want it for themselves
Mhm.
and they will freely give it to others, but they have a hard time not just getting it, but keeping it for themselves because they have such a generous nature. What kind of balance should someone seek that has that sort of mindset, so that they're still generous in giving, but not at their own expense all the time? Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay.
I think of the best way to address this. Money is a tool, and money will only do what you tell it to do or what you let it do. So if you feel like you are bad at managing money, you're gonna have a hard time making and keeping it because you don't have a good relationship with what you do with it whenever you have it. It's really easy for someone to be generous and yet not have a strong savings or not have strong money management skills, which sounds really weird. Of how can you be really good at being generous, which is a good management? It's a prudent, wise, loving thing to do. How can you be good at that and yet not have any for yourself? That just, it doesn't make sense. But the reason that happens a lot of the time is because if someone doesn't trust themselves with how they're going to manage money, they get a kind of a security or a positive emotion and thought process around it if they just give it to someone else. And if they're nice in that gesture, it's like, I know I'm not going to do anything good with this. Maybe I'll do good with it by giving it to someone else and benefiting them.
Okay.
So generosity is where you want to end up. You want to be able to give abundantly and freely and without pain, without hindrance, anytime, anywhere, to anybody. That is like one of the ultimate goals for financial independence that most of us have. But if you do that to your own expense, meaning if you're going to do that, but you can't manage it for yourself and take care of yourself, you're actually hurting yourself by giving money away. And there's a lot of mental and emotional connotations that come with that I walk people through in my coaching all the time, because your management of money is a direct result of your mindset and relationship with money. And I spend a lot of time helping people sort through how do we get past toxic, unhealthy personal relationships, personal mindsets, personal thoughts and stories and historical experiences with money, so that we can understand it, we can communicate about it, we can talk about it, and we can manage it in a healthy way with our spouse, to where no matter what happens, and this goes back to what we talked about a minute ago, no matter what happens in the future, we are confident, we are in control, we are comfortable with our ability and our money to live the life that we want to live.
How could that not be a place everyone wants to get to, right?
Yes.
So is it that it's just very hard to get to that place, or is it just that we think it is, and so we just don't take that first step? What do you think?
I think it's a combination of those two, and it all goes back to those first three problems that I talked about at the beginning. Because number one, if you don't believe it, you're not going to try it. What does it matter how easy or hard it is? If you don't believe it's possible, you're not even going to pursue that path. But if you do believe it's possible, there's two big reasons why most people wouldn't do it. Either they don't want to deal with it, they're afraid of the truth or of what they think is the truth, but they haven't actually dealt with it, looked at it, talked about it. They're telling themselves the story of what it is without reading the book on what happened. So there's that, but there's also the aspect that it is hard. It's hard to manage money. It's hard to make changes. It's hard to say no. It's hard to communicate about something that you don't fully understand and that you don't fully have a good relationship with. I talk about, I deal with couples exclusively. So we talk about a lot of marriage elements in coaching. And one thing that I tell people is, money is personal, it's emotional, and it impacts every area of your life. It's a very intimate thing. Well, whenever you are discussing an intimate topic with the person that you are the most intimate with, if something in either of those areas is off, it makes the entire conversation more difficult, and it magnifies the problem, and it makes the symptoms more difficult and hard to get around. But even if it's great, even if you have a good marriage and you are good at managing money, it's still hard work. And some people just don't want to go down that path. They are comfortable where they're at, usually because they believe that's as good as it's going to get. So they aren't willing to do the work and to have the focus and have the intentionality, because you go back to our story about paying off our house, right? We paid it off in 4 years and 9 months.
Wow.
Our original plan, Lora, was 7 years. So we cut our original plan in half, almost, a little over half. It was not easy. There were months where we didn't know if we were still even going to hit that 7-year mark. And there were months where we're like, man, we are kicking butt. We have, some extra money this month. We can throw extra money at this mortgage. And it ebbed and flowed. And it was never easy. It was never what I would call fun, because we said no to a lot of things, but we also said yes to what was important and what we knew would keep us moving forward. And that's what allowed us to be so successful. And that was because we just stayed focused and we made the hard decisions because we had a dream and a goal and a vision, and we were willing to sacrifice some areas to make that happen.
Wow.
So it's a and again, this is why I love coaching, because there's so many facets to the question. There's so many answers to the situation. There's so many reasons and opportunities that each couple could experience. We don't have enough time in a week to go through it all.
Yeah.
But the reality is every person has their own struggles, their own stories that they tell themselves, their own challenges, and their own goals and desires. And I get to help them decipher all of that and find the plan that works best for them, because money is personal, money is emotional, and you can't get away from it. So you might as well deal with it and figure out how to make it work for you instead of you working for your money.
That makes me wonder if your marriage is stronger now because of what you guys have gone through and what you've achieved together.
Well, absolutely. And we were unique from the standpoint that, most couples that I work with, they struggle to figure out how to work with each other, how to talk with each other, how to communicate with each other, how to manage the same way. I mean, they're not on the same page.
Mhm.
Ultimately, they both want the same thing. Once we actually sit down and talk about their dreams and their desires and their fears and their goals, we end up 9 times out of 10 deciding, hey, you guys both want the same thing. You just haven't been able to communicate with each other and agree upon the plan to get there. For my wife and I, it was the same concept. We had a conversation before we ever got married that showed that we thought about money differently. We reacted to money differently. We managed and talked about money differently. We were not the same people when it came to how we viewed money in our lives. And that we had to work through that in the early years of our marriage. Now, it never caused big money fights or big money problems. We definitely had disagreements. We definitely did not agree upon how the budget was going to go. We definitely, to this day, don't always see eye to eye completely on what we're going to do.
Mhm.
But what we did agree upon was our goal and what we were willing to do to accomplish that goal, what we could say yes to because it was important, and what we could say no to because it could wait. And so finding those common grounds allowed us to focus on that to grow with each other. And that focus allowed us to overcome the struggles and the challenges, because we realized, okay, we maybe think differently about this, but we both want the same result. So how can we, support each other and keep each other accountable, and
Mhm.
find a way where one person is confident and the other person is comfortable enough with it because of
Mhm.
that confidence that we can both agree upon this. So absolutely, it strengthened our marriage. It helped us get very focused and intentional and disciplined around our plan, which allowed us to just be better managers and support each other better in that management. But I think the most important thing was it helped us develop a very strong trust in each other, that when
Mm.
the good times were there, we knew we could win together. And when the bad times came through, we knew that we could keep together, that we could keep moving, because we've had some rough times. I mean, we had a flooded basement. We've had 2 transmissions goes out. We've had 2 kids, or 3 kids now being born, 2 of them during the payoff of the mortgage. We've had a lot of things happen, a lot of life happen that could have easily derailed us, easily knocked us off our course and made us frustrated and discouraged. But it didn't, because we knew we were going to work together. We were going to have a plan and we were going to win, and we did.
Well, and you're a man with a plan, man. I haven't known you like forever, but what I know about you is you're a man with a plan, and I find that refreshing because I sometimes don't operate that way. So, what I'm hearing you say is that you're part counselor, part money coach. I wonder what percentage of each you are, and have you ever has it ever crossed your mind, man, I might need to bring in another person here who is like an actual counselor to help these people before we start really diving into the money aspect of things, you know?
Yeah, that's a great point. And you're right that a lot of the conversations that I have and a lot of couples that I work with, they do need some form, some level of marriage, whether you want to call it coaching or counseling or just help help period.
Mhm.
um, and not all of them are in dire constraints. I mean, I work with some couples that have a great marriage. They have great communication. They just have a hard time understanding money.
Yeah.
But those money challenges impact their marriage. So it goes hand in hand, no matter how
Mhm.
good or how bad either one is. I am fortunate enough to work with some marriage coaches and counselors, kind of, partner with them. If there's some areas where my clients it is their relationship issue, it's not a money issue.
Mhm.
I'm not skilled and experienced to help them through that. So I'm gonna refer them to the person that can, and
Yeah,
vice versa. Some of those coaches and counselors know that if they have people that have money problems, they're not skilled in that, they're gonna send them my way. So I've got some great relationships
that's
that I
great.
work with in that area. But yeah, I experience a lot of relational and marriage discussions and topics and feelings and sentiments and realities because of the nature of that. And the fun thing is the financial conversations can be traced back to some marriage conversations, and some marriage conversations can have an impact on the financial conversations.
Yeah.
So while they certainly go hand in hand, I talk about money while someone else can talk about the marriage, but knowing full well that our conversations that those couples are going to have with each person are probably going to support and confirm and just give more understanding of each other because they
Mhm.
are very, very much intertwined.
That's fascinating to me. I think it was interesting. I was taking notes while you were talking. Another interesting thing you said was that you had to learn to say no to things and figure out what things could wait.
Mhm.
And that seems like it goes against our culture.
Very much so.
Yeah, and it
Very much.
also makes me think of it makes me wonder how much of the buying process, because as we know there's psychology in what
Mhm.
people buy and why they buy it. It makes me wonder how much of the buying process is actually emotional versus, reason and logic.
Mhm.
And I imagine a large percentage of it is emotional. And so that kind of goes hand in hand with developing the skill to be able to say no to something now so that I can have something better later. How
Mhm.
hard of a concept is that for people?
It can be really challenging if you don't have a healthy relationship with your money.
Yeah.
That's the struggle that most couples face, is they have a hard time saying no because they have an unhealthy connotation to what money is for them, does for them, how they manage it, how they respond to it.
Mhm.
Um, I even have a hard time saying no, and I've got a very good relationship with money. So it's not something that we're just going to, automatically get over. It is a psychological decision. And
Mhm.
you're right, Laura. It starts with the emotional involvement. And this is something that I, at the very beginning of my coaching, I work with couples on. And it's a lot of fun to see them go, oh, that's why I do that. Because
Yeah.
money starts with emotion. It does not start with logic. It does not start with reason. It does not start with, how what's the math behind it.
Mhm.
Never does it start with that. It always starts with emotion.
But I think we think it does though.
We have this we've been taught that financial management is about math. It's
Mhm.
about how much you can make and how little you can spend.
Mhm.
Well, that helps, right? That's the purpose of a spending plan because math does make a difference in the final equation. But financial management is not about math. It's about emotion and behavior to make the math work.
Right.
Because you can have, I mean, heck, I was spending more than I was making, right? My math did not add up whenever I first started out, and that's what caused the problem. But what fixed the problem, Laura, was managing what I did because my income didn't change. So it wasn't like
Right.
I just went out and made another $1,000 a month. No, I just controlled what I was doing with the money that I was making. Yes,
Mm.
emotion is a starting point. Math provides the plan, and behavior decides how we're going to control both of these elements
I
to work
love
in our
that.
favor.
That's a quotable. Write that down. That's a quotable. Very good. I just love how you break things down and make them so simple and easy to understand. This is all like bells are going off in my head. This makes sense to me.
Mhm.
So okay, let's switch gears a little bit. And I guess actually it's not switching gears too much, but you talked about people, the way they grow up is really important. And at least for me, I can say that money was never talked about in my house.
Mhm.
It was always a negative emotion type of thing,
Mhm.
but I had no clue what was going on, and nor I was not taught about it or anything. And so I think I'm guessing there are some people out there that can relate to this. Like, how come nobody ever taught me about taxes? How come nobody ever talked to me about insurance? How come? And then you just learn this throughout your life, basically, because it's a necessity,
Mhm.
and you just fumble through and learn the best that you can, or you hire people that know more than you to handle those things that you don't understand. So as a parent now, I'm wondering what principles do I need to be instilling in my children
Yeah.
so that they don't grow up the same way that I did, just, not really having a roadmap, having some confusion about things. Any ideas there that you can throw at us? Any tips?
So, yeah, I'll start with addressing what you said there about our growing up because
Yeah.
that has a direct correlation with how we raise our kids. People don't talk about money. They haven't talked about money for decades, right? I mean, you ask our grandparents, that was a no, 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 no. Even now,
Right.
my kids don't. I mean, I'm sorry, my parents don't know everything about their parents' financial status, right?
Mm.
So it's just you did not talk about it with anybody. It was a personal matter,
Mhm.
none of your business,
Mhm.
and that's just how it was. So our parents came into the equation and they knew that they wanted to have their parents' lifestyle, but they didn't want to do what it took to get that lifestyle. Meaning they wanted it when they were 30 instead of 50.
Mhm.
And they had the opportunity to get it earlier, but it also cost them. And because they didn't learn from their mom and dad of how to actually manage money, they were figuring it out on their own based upon what their friends were doing. Well, guess what? The friends didn't know anything either. So it's all this trial and error.
Yeah.
So when you get to us, we're the millennial generation now, and we have been taught then, because our parents did teach us some things, but it was most of it not right. So we were taught about debt, about credit scores, about finances or financing, about credit cards, about how you couldn't get ahead because they had a hard time getting out of debt and all this stuff. So we're taught all these things. Money is talked about from a negative connotation because of the
Right.
negative experience.
Right.
So all that to say that the reason that we struggle with money is because majority of us were not taught the right way. If it was talked about, it was because of bad past experiences or just a lack of actual understanding knowledge. That's what's got us in the place where we are on that 80% paycheck to paycheck because we don't know any different. We're accustomed to that. We are trained to accept that.
Mhm.
And we believe that's the only way that it's going to work because we're generations in of that being the standard.
Mhm.
So fast forward then to what do we need to do with our kids? Number one, we need to believe that is not the way it should be. That is not I'll use the word acceptable because we should not accept the fact that we are succumbed to financial insecurity.
Mhm.
That's a terrible way to live life. We also should be willing to change and to learn so we can teach. So we already have all of these lessons and stories and thoughts that we have been ingrained with and are encountering every single day and believe some of them. Well, guess what? We got to relearn. We got to believe that, hey, that's not true. That's not real. That's not right. That's not the way that we actually need to be managing money so that we can teach our kids. Because if we want our kids to have a better life than us, they've got to do things differently than we did them.
Mhm.
That's just the reality of being a parent, right?
Mhm.
So what do? We learn from someone who has succeeded, not guessed, not complained, not tried and failed because they didn't know how to do it. Learn from someone who succeeded. Make the decision that you want something better than that you can change, that your kids can change. And then teach your kids, hey, here's what I did and it didn't work. It messed up. Be vulnerable, be honest, be authentic. My parents, multiple times in the last 15 years since I've been out of the house. Boy, Austin, you're way smarter than we were. We know you're going to do better with money. We trust that you're going to make the right decision. They knew that they did not do some things right. And they knew that I learned from that. And now they are encouraging my different way of money management.
Mhm.
Now, they don't have the confidence necessarily to do that, but they know that I do, and they want to encourage me to live that life. So passing that on to our kids and hey, we messed up. We did this and it didn't work. So here's what we have learned you should do and pass those good lessons on to our kids. We are at a point right now, Laura, I believe, where we can change the financial future of the next generation because we've gotten to the point where we are broke. We are living paycheck to paycheck and we don't know how to manage the thing that drives our entire life. So we're in trouble if we can't get it figured out. But our kids, they have the opportunity to truly have a better life, to truly be more financially secure and independent, to truly change their family when they grow up if we take the initiative and the discipline to teach them, because we know we're not doing it right, but we can do better.
And luckily, we have people like you who can help us through that process. We can learn and grow and, maybe fail and get back on the horse again. And,
Right.
we'll figure it out. I just appreciate what you're doing. I mean, this is bigger than making your checkbook balance. This is a
Oh,
lot bigger
absolutely.
than that. Yeah.
This is changing your life so you can change your community, which can impact the whole world.
Right. So what do you say to the people who are right now listening to this and they know the state of our economy? They understand that things are not looking good, not only on a worldwide scale or a national scale, but in my home right now. They're worried and afraid, and they're thinking, I should have figured this out decades ago so I could have positioned myself to weather this storm. And now I'm finding myself in this storm. There's no way I can figure this out right now. Like if I wanted to become financially secure, now's not the time because I'm in survival mode. What do you say to those people who are discouraged right now?
I would say now's the perfect time to start because the only way is up.
I like
Because
that.
if you feel like you can't get any worse, you're probably right. So the only other way to go is to improve.
I love your attitude. I love it.
I mean, you got two choices: stay put or do something about it. That's where
Right.
you're at right now.
Right.
Honestly, I hear a lot of conversations around the economy in outside circles.
Uh-huh.
The couples that come to me, they're not concerned about the economy because they know that's not what's going to make them succeed or keep them from winning.
Mm.
They know it's something bigger than that. I have very few people come to me and say, how do I get ahead whenever there's inflation? How do I get ahead whenever we got to have two? I don't hear those questions, Laura. I
Hmm.
hear, how do we manage our money better? How do I get my spouse to get on the same page with me? How do I get my debt paid off so I cannot be worried about saving for the future? Those are the questions that I get
Hmm.
from people that come to me. So it's not this concept of, well, the economy's in shambles and inflation is way up and we just don't know. Those people, to be completely frank, blunt, and honest, they're not going to change
Yeah.
because they are already in the belief that, well,
The
that's
blame
just
game.
the way it is.
Yeah.
That's just how it is.
If it
Nothing we can
wasn't
do.
for this, I would be financially
Exactly.
secure. If it wasn't for that, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So my advice to those people is, number one, do you think it's going to change either the economy or your situation? Because yes, they will both change. The question is, which way will they go, and which one do you have control of? There's a lot of things that we can say dictate our success. Our environment, our background are the two main things. But the things that actually impact our success is what we do about our future. What decisions do we make? What actions do we take? It's a simple concept because it's all about us.
Right.
I mean, there's, the last 4 years, we have seen some crazy things in the economy. And I'll admit, inflation has impacted my household, right? I mean, we are spending more on fuel and groceries and restaurants. I mean, everything has gone up. To be honest, if we had not paid our mortgage off when we did, we would be hurting right now because of the
Hmm.
economy. But we would still be in control of our money because we had a plan. So the economy isn't ruining us, it's just making it harder to do. And
Hmm.
that's the big thing that people need to grasp hold of is the economy isn't going to save you or drown you.
Hmm.
It's just going to impact what decisions you have to make to keep going.
Right. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. So, all right. So, what are some actionable steps then just to get started if you're living paycheck to paycheck? What's just a place to begin? I mean, obviously calling you would be a good first step, but
So the first thing that you've got to do in order to get through any difficult circumstance or make any changes to your life is decide what is your goal or your desire or where do you want to end up, right? Because you're not going to change if you don't want to accomplish something. I'm not going to go start running unless I want to be healthier because I hate running. You will not catch me running unless I'm chasing a cow, and that's the honest God truth.
or running from one, but
Exactly.
she won't last long.
So unless I decide I have to and I want to get in shape, I am not going to start running. So you're not going to make any changes, period, unless you have a very strong innate desire to get ahead, do something different, change your life. So you've got to have that goal, you've got to have that desire, that passion, that motivation of I'm sick and tired of this and I want to change. That's the very first thing. Without
Hmm.
that, nothing else matters.
Hmm.
Once you do that, then it's a matter of deciding, okay, what will it take to accomplish that? And typically, Laura, that is where someone has to go find the outside help because we cannot see what is in front of us whenever we're focused on what's been behind us. We
Hmm.
can't do it. We're so focused on where am I coming from that I can't see where I'm supposed to be going. And I've always said the dash of your car, the windshield, is a heck of a lot bigger than your rearview mirror. That's for a reason. So if you can't spend your time looking ahead versus looking behind, you're going to stand still. So at that point, it is usually wise and prudent to find someone who can help you identify what are the next steps to take because you don't know because you haven't done it and you are going to have a hard time figuring it out. Now, there's a lot of resources out there on YouTube and on Facebook and not on TikTok. There's a lot of bad. I am on TikTok, so you can go follow my resources, but everyone else probably is going to have a hard time
Oh yeah, I'll put that
learning on
ticker
there.
up here where people can find you.
There are a lot of resources out there, and you can absolutely learn how to budget, how to manage, how to do the tactical things of money on your own. That's how I learned. I went and I started researching online. I started just finding stuff. But where you're really going to see the success and how does I make this work for me is if you find someone who knows your situation and can see that bigger picture of here's what you need to do because of your money, because of your frustration, because of your fears, your struggles, and your goals and your strengths and your opportunities and
Yeah.
combining those two together.
Hmm.
So that's the second step is find someone who can help you identify the next steps. The third step then is make the commitment to implement it. Make the commitment to manage your behavior, to make the choices, to work with your spouse, to follow your plan, to make the intentional spending and saving decisions that it's going to require to accomplish the life that you want to live based upon your goals. Those are the three things that someone needs to do to win with money.
You're so good at this. I love it.
I love talking about it.
I can tell you're very passionate about it. I appreciate that about you. That made me think of yet another thing. I just see so many parallels between things in my own life. So I can imagine someone could get really excited from watching this, from watching you,
Mhm.
and being like, okay, I need to do something. I am motivated to do something. And just like working out, they start doing the thing and they're really excited about it. And within 3 weeks or so, they have defaulted back into their old way of thinking and those old habits creep up on them. And that reminds me of a breakthrough, I guess, I've had in my own life with fitness, which is motivation versus discipline. So would you say this is similar in that regard, that people need to learn discipline rather than relying on motivation? They can maybe start with that, but you would be the person to help them navigate through learning discipline in this area?
I wouldn't say it's so much discipline as
Okay.
much as accountability.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll give you a little bit of example, and this is a sneak peek to something I share in my master class that changed my whole view of managing money as a couple. A draft horse has a very strong ability to pull weight, right? The crazy thing about a draft horse pulling weight, though, is one draft horse can pull so much weight. Two draft horses can pull so much weight, but two draft horses that are working together can pull even more weight than two just there and one
Mhm.
by itself. And I don't want to give any more than that because I want people to go listen to masterclass and hear the full story. But here's why I dropped that concept. Because whenever you are trying to manage money on your own, it's all about you. It's what you can do. It's how determined you are, how motivated you are, how intense you are. It's all about you.
Mhm.
When you're married, you've got someone that can support you. They can encourage you. They can motivate you. They can challenge you. They can question you. They can give you ideas, which makes it all a lot easier. And you have more success than if you do it on your own. When that person is also doing it with you and they are the accountability partner, not just the supporting spouse, when they are making the same decisions, they are taking the same actions, they are believing the same mindset, and they are the person that you can literally bounce ideas off of and hold each other accountable to your decision, then you reach the ultimate level of financial success because you are quadrupling literally your ability to win with money than if you were doing it all by yourself.
Mm.
So it's not about discipline. It's not about motivation. It's about accountability with your spouse to do it as a couple, because that is how you will together win and succeed, is you both are doing it 100% in unison.
Wow, that sounds like a wonderful place to be.
It is. It makes
Yeah.
everything easier.
Yeah, that makes sense. And that reminds me, we need to let people know where they can go for one of your master classes. Is that through your website?
It is. Yeah. If they go to freedommoneycoach.com
Freedom
slash
Money Coach?
freedommoneycoach.com/training. That will get them right to the registration page. I'm doing those master classes once a month right now. It's a live class. So you can tune into that. And if folks think I am unloading the dynamite here, I've got a whole different talk over there that goes into a lot of this, a lot more personal stories, a lot more just concepts and strategies and all the frameworks that I have implemented to accomplish the success I've talked about. So they can get some more goodness from that, and would love to have
For
them join me
free,
for that
right?
free class. It is all free. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, why wouldn't you do that?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a blast. We have a lot of fun. You learn a lot. It's
Yeah.
great. You should come.
Everybody should. Me and all my friends, we're going to show up. The last question I want to ask, because it kind of piggybacks on what you were talking about earlier about the two draft horses pairing up and being able to pull more together. What if someone is watching this right now and they are super excited about what they're hearing
Mhm.
and they want to get involved in what you have going on, but their partner or spouse is not on the same page at all?
Mhm.
So what do you say to those people?
Yeah, it's such a common question because it's such a common problem.
Yeah.
One spouse was the other spouse either doesn't care, doesn't want it, or just doesn't know, how to do it.
Hmm.
Nothing that I will tell them will change their mind.
Mm.
So I will admit that, I mean, they have got to be willing to consider the fact before they even come talk to me. So what do you do if your spouse there's three levels, I guess, here that you could be at. Number one is your spouse doesn't even want to talk about it. You can't have a conversation without them disagreeing, without it being an argument. There is no mutual understanding about money and the situation and the problem and the opportunity. It's just we're on different universes at this point. The way that you accomplish that, you try to understand, if you're the spouse that wants to change, you try to understand where your spouse is coming from and their resistance, their reluctancy. A lot of times it's just because they are either afraid and don't want to admit it, they don't understand it and don't know how to learn about it, or they are just accepting the fact that that's how it is and deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no point in changing. That's just how it is. That's how we're gonna go with it.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, in order for you to break down those walls, you've got to understand and relate to them where they're at, because you are not going to get them to see a new opportunity or want to take change unless you can understand why they are where they're at. And that's a hard conversation that I can help someone have that conversation, but it's a hard conversation to have. I'll admit that. The other level is if your spouse does talk about money, you just can't agree upon it. You always have these disagreements, or you just don't see it the same way, right? So therefore, you typically have an argument, or if you aren't arguing, you can't come to a mutual conclusion, right? One wants to pay down debt, one wants to save, one wants to buy a new truck, one wants to wait until they have cash. Typically, you guys both want the same thing. You just have different viewpoints of how you're going to get there. So in that case, it's going to, hey, why do we even want to do this? What is our ultimate goal? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to achieve? And why are we afraid of certain things? And again, that's not an easy conversation either, right? Mm-hmm. Because it causes us to be vulnerable to ask hard, pressing questions, but it also allows the opportunity to be intimate with one another. And here's the key: to be open and accepting and understanding. Because just because you see it differently than your spouse does not mean your spouse is wrong.
Right.
It means you just don't understand them, and vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I can help with that conversation. That's an easier conversation to have. It's still not easy to do.
Mm-hmm.
The third thing, the third level, and this is where when most people come to me, we have the most success initially. It's not the only way I can help them, but it's where we have the most success to start with, is when they both say, hey, we don't know what we need to do. We just know we need to do something. And we don't agree about money. We can't talk about it without having a disagreement. We don't know how we're going to hit our goals. We don't know if we even have the right goals. We don't know anything, right? We're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But we're both stuck and we both want to get out. At that point, you can come to me and I can say, okay, where do you want to go? Where are you having a hard time? Let's break down those walls. Let's find that plan. And guys, I can carry you to the shore. I can keep you from drowning because you both want to get there. So even if you don't agree on how to get there, even if you don't agree on how to talk about it, if you don't agree upon what the problem actually is, if you both admit there's a problem and you want change, that's where we can start to make that change and accomplish that success. So unfortunately, money is not easy to talk about. It's not easy to get over. It's not easy to manage and to win with, but it is possible if you're willing to have those hard conversations, become vulnerable, be understanding, be transparent, and be willing to work together to make the change happen.
Money's never, well, at least as far as we know, never going to go away. So It's always going to be there. It's always, for some people, the big elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. You've either got two options. You can either address it or deal with it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. And my question to people who want to deal with it is, what kind of stress and emotional difficulty and marriage conflict does that cause you? Because Lora, I can promise you, if one spouse wants to deal with it, the other spouse is begging for control, begging for it. Now, they may not be voicing that because of the conversation that's going to bring up if they do, but I can promise you. In fact, we had, I have to go back and look at what episode it was. We did an entire episode on the podcast several months ago. It was directed at the men in the relationship because majority of the time, the men are the ones who have a harder time admitting that they need help, wanting to talk about it, that's just the way that it is. So our episode talked about why men not talking about it is causing a bigger problem in their marriage. So guys, I'm calling you out on this. I'm a man, I manage the money. And if I don't talk about it, I cause a bigger issue. That's our role and our job and our responsibility is to talk about it, to hear our wives' concerns, to hear our wives' secure emotions. That is our job and our responsibility. So if one person is not wanting to do that, the other person is begging for it. Verbally or not, they are begging for it. And the only way to have a marriage that just is awesome is to be on the same page with your finances.
We'll be on the same page in general.
Right. Yeah. Be on the same page across the board. And if you're on the same page with your finances, that makes everything else easier.
It's a ripple effect, don't you think?
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you referred to the podcast. People can find that where?
We are on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. They can go to YouTube and watch the video version of it. We are on, I think we're on Castbox. Pretty much anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can find us.
Called The Heart of Money.
Yep.
And if they want to sign up for your masterclass, they can go to freedommoneycoach.com. freedom.life/training.
That is correct.
And they can find you on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at Freedom Money Coach.
Yep. And so
Right.
I'm on YouTube at Freedom Financial Coaching. So all the podcast stuff goes to you. That's primarily where we're posting all the video for the podcast. I've also got some shorts from the podcast on there. So if you like listening, go to the podcast. If you like watching, go to YouTube and you'll get all the same stuff.
Yeah, that's kind of what we do here too. So, because everybody's different how they like
Right.
to,
Exactly.
how they like to watch or listen. So, well, that's great. Any final thoughts before we leave tonight?
I think that as we have talked about countless times in this conversation, money is a hard topic to talk about, period. It's something that we don't talk about near enough, which is a shame because it affects us all at a very deep level every day of our life.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, one of my goals is to make money easy to talk about within our marriage, within our communities, within our families, within our world.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can't get away from it. You can take the choice to just accept it as it's going to come, or you can make the choice to take control of it, overcome your fear and frustration of it, and change your life through it. And every couple that I've had a chance to work with, they've transformed their lives. They are not the same person. Their marriage is not the same relationship. And it's exciting for me to see that. And obviously it's exciting for them to experience that. But I want to encourage people that if you're afraid to talk about money, I can help. If you're afraid to manage money, I can help. If you're struggling with how to get your spouse on the same page, I can help. If you want to win with money in any regard, it won't be easy. It'll take work, but I can promise you it is possible.
You're so good at breaking down complex things and making them simple and easy to understand, which is why I think you're so gifted as a coach.
Thank you. I tell you, I get off of every single coaching session and I am giddy.
Really?
I absolutely love it because I get to dissect deep topics in a couple's relationship and in their money, and I get to help them see things differently. I get to help them overcome their own emotional and financial barriers, and for me that is making a difference. So I absolutely love it, and every time I get off, I'm like, man, let's do it again. Let's jump on another call. It fires me up. So I hope that my my passion and my excitement is contagious to my clients because I absolutely love helping them accomplish success with their money.
It's contagious to me. I can feel it through the screen. It's awesome. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us. And I know that your words have inspired somebody out there. Somebody out there's listening right now who needs to hear exactly what you had to say. So
you bet. And I'll drop in one more resource.
Sure.
So, you can follow me on the podcast. You can come to the training. You can do all that stuff. If you say, hey, I want help now. I love what you said to say. I believe that you can help me and I want to get started. I do offer a free 30-minute discovery call. It's right on the front page of my website. So if you just go to freedommoneycoach.com, you can click the button to book a free discovery call, and we'll have a chance to just visit to talk about your struggles, your goals, and I'll share with you the next steps that I recommend. But if you're at that point, you're like, man, something needs to change now. I'm ready to get started. Mm-hmm. That's something I can offer you to give you the guidance and the coaching opportunity free of charge to help you get started on that path to success.
That's very helpful. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Austin. Appreciate all your time.
So fun to be here, Laura. Thanks a lot for having me.